name's Gavin, and this is Genre Books, and I am continuing to try to sort out my bookshelves. As I mentioned in the video I did last week, where I started this task, the bookshelves have got away from me a little bit. Nothing is where it should be. Everything is triple stacked, so I can't see what's behind the first flush of books that you can see here. And I need to figure out if I've got duplicates. I found one last week, and I need to free up some space. If I were to empty these shelves entirely and start sorting afresh, I would end up in a pickle. I have no room to put them. It would take me, I would suggest, more than a day to get it done. And knowing exactly what's in each shelf is, I think, going to help me sort it out in a bit of a more thorough way. I have lingering questions about how I'm going to sort these. There is a mix of science fiction, fantasy, literary, western, horror, you name it. Do I do these by genre? Do I do them by size? Do I do them by author? Do I do a little bit of all of these things? Any suggestions welcomed. But let's get to looking to see what was in this empty box here. First up is a battered old Bantam Books paperback, The Mind Thing by Fredric Brown. I've not read this one. In fact, I'm going to probably say I've not read most of these. But the Fredric Brown I have read to date, which is What Mad Universe and Nightmares in Geese and Stacks, have been absolutely excellent. So I think this is going to be one I will read and then I think probably dispose of, because it is superbly tatty. Big bold colours for these next two, which do come as companions, and that is the Stories of Ray Bradbury Volume 1 and Volume 2. A couple of the stories in these books I have read. The vast majority I have not, so I think good ones to dip into. Normally they're fairly short stories from Ray Bradbury, but always enjoyable. I've obviously hit the Bradbury vein of these bookshelves, because the next one is also this collection of short stories. I Sing the Body Electric, a corgi collection of short stories, seen better days, but again, interested to read these. The title, I think, from Walt Whitman. And yet more Bradbury short story collections. This is Long After Midnight. Moving from Bradbury to John Brunner, but sticking with a collection of short stories, and we begin with from the New English Library, Not Before Time, with a crazy cover. The Dreaming Earth from John Brunner, and a novel from him about overpopulation, which is a theme he does return to, as I think we'll find out shortly. A Methuen paperback, and one in excellent condition. Again, John Brunner, The Wrong End of Time. Galactic politics in The Long Result. And again, more overpopulation and other disasters happening in The Sheep Look Up. 3 books now from the Cities of Flight collection by James Blish. The first book, They Shall Have Stars, I have read and is in a box in the garage. But the next ones in the series are A Clash of Cymbals, Earthman Come Home, and A Life for the Stars. I enjoyed They Shall Have Stars, not hugely, but enough to make me want to give the rest of the series a go. More James Blish, this time a collection of stories, Galactic Cluster. And an ace science fiction special collaboration between James Blish and Damon Knight, A Terror of Faces. Robert Bloch and 2 novellas, Ladies' Day and This Crowded Earth. This Crowded Earth I have read is fantastic. Ladies' Day I have not yet read, so I'll keep this on the shelves until I've done so. And this has the ultimate hallmark of paperback quality, an advertisement for cigarettes. Next up is Ben Bova. Now, I've not read Ben Bova before. I only know him as a science fiction magazine editor. I know that he's written plenty of books, and I think Kinsman is regarded as one of the best, so I will be starting here. A great spaceship on the front cover. There's a slightly less impressive spaceship on the cover of this one, and this is John Boyd's The Last Starship from Earth. One of my all-time favourite writers, and a collection of his stories that I have not read yet, so this, I think, is going to find its way onto my higher position on my TBR, and that's Bloch and the Book of Sand. And now 3 books by John Barth, who is a writer I should have read by now and have not, but I think I'm going to enjoy these. It's The Floating Opera, The Sotweed Factor, and Giles Goat Boy. Now, the last 2 of these are over 750 pages each, so are any of them... Oh, this one's over 800 pages, so this, I think, would qualify for March of the Mammoths next year, so one to keep in consideration. And from a highly regarded writer to just one who's great fun, let's say, and this is Leo Brett, The Alien Ones. This is Mayflower? No, 5-star publication. Leo Brett is a pseudonym. Leo Brett is the Reverend Lionel Fanthorpe, he of Badger Books fame. And 3 books from Lee Brackett in the Planet Skaith adventures. The Ginger Star, The Hounds of Skaith, and The Reavers of Skaith. Next is an author who writes in a number of different genres. So I've read Blood Music by him. This is Greg Bear, and Blood Music was a science fiction horror. Here it looks like just traditional science fiction. Eon and Anvil of Stars. But he also looks, as well as science fiction and science fiction horror, to dip his toe into fantasy as well. And I've got 2 of his fantasy works, Hegira and The Serpent Mage. And I think The Serpent Mage is a sequel to the Infinity Concerto, which I do have a copy of somewhere. This next book has seen better days. I can't find a date on it, but it shows all the hallmarks of being Mushroom Press-ish, and it's a very early Panther Books, which only cost 1 shilling and 6pence, and this is Brian Berry's From What Far Star. Alfred Bester. The short stories I've read of his, I like. The Star's My Destination, or Tiger Tiger, the novel of his I've read, I love. And this is a collection of short stories called The Light Fantastic. This next one is a war book, a war novel, and probably a spy novel as well. And it's an old corgi which has seen better times. But this is The Spies of Peenemünde. So uncovering the efforts of the Germans in the Second World War to produce flying bombs. This next one, I think I must have picked up thinking Garb August, but have not picked it for this year's Garb August. There's always next year. And this is Ride the Golden Tiger by Jonathan Black. Someone is trying to corner the gold market. 12,000 years in the future, post-apocalyptic science fiction, fantasy, survival capers with Michael Bishop Beneath the Shattered Moons. An Avon fantasy paperback now, Enchanter by Robin W. Bailey. Historical fiction. Quite how much fiction there is versus historical, I don't know, but one day I will find out. And that is the Borgia Testament by Nigel Bulchin, Fontana Books. This next book is written under pseudonym. Death in the Fifth Position by Edgar Box, and the author is Gore Vidal. More John Brunner, and this is The Shockwave Rider. A book that probably needs no introduction, Beowulf. And two historical novels from Ronald Bassett. They're both in Pan Books. This is The Pompeians, and I think this actually came after this next book, which is The Carthaginian. End of the World Sci-Fi with Stephen Baxter and Moonseed. 13th century German narrative poetry, Parsifal. Writer I've not heard of before, and a book I've not heard of, I, Alien by J. Michael Reeves. And I could say the same for this one, The Savage Stars by Richard Rinesmith. A Del Rey fantasy published by Ballantine. This is Charles Beamer, When the Gods Returned. So I think this says first time in print, and I think this is either a standalone or the first in a series, so one that I can read without fear of not being able to complete the story. And now a writer I definitely have heard of. I've read some of his books already, but he wrote an awful lot, so I've still got quite a few to go through. It's Mac Reynolds, and we have here The Earth War, The Cosmic Eye, Commune 2000 AD, imagine that. The Towers of Utopia, Galactic Medal of Honor, and back when books would be 20 pence at W.H. Smith's, and Space Pioneer. From the New English Library, 1975 reprint, this is R.W. Mackleworth's Tilt Angle. This is actually fairly high up on my TBR, something to tackle next year. I absolutely love that dark cover. This is an author I've read a fair bit of. I've not read, I think it's one of his first books. This is Larry Niven, The Integral Trees. 60s paperback from Michael Moorcock, and this is The Black Corridor. Another Dell fantasy, and this one looks like a weird book. This is The Incredible Umbrella by Marvin Kaye. A wild and woolly flight through fractured fantasy. Professor J. Adrian Fillmore was a collector of strange antiques. Little did he know that when he bought the odd umbrella, he would become a collector of strange adventures. Pulled by the magical bomber chute through the realms of Victorian fantasy, Fillmore stumbled on the Frankenstein monster, a world of genies, Gilbert and Sullivan extravaganzas, Dracula, and even Sherlock Holmes. Pan science fiction now, and Richard McKenna, Casey Agonistes, and other SF and fantasy adventures. Moonflash by Patricia A. McKillip, so another fantasy. This one looks, again, that's a beautiful cover, and I've got a hankering to read this one as well. And an opportunity to clear a little bit of space from my shelves, because here's my copy of Nightmares in Giesenstacks with its Hieronymus Bosch detail cover, going in the garage. C.C. McCapp with Worlds of the Wall. I like how American paperbacks have their sprayed edges. I wish they had done that in the UK. They just look nice, and they fade rather than yellow. Charles Eric Maine next, and Fire Past the Future. Now, this last year I've read The Tide Went Out by Charles Eric Maine and enjoyed it immensely, so I'll look forward to this one. Anne McCaffrey, Dragon Singer, Harper of Pern. I've got a horrible feeling this is some way into the series, and I'll have to see how much of the series I've actually got and whether I need to fill in a gap or two. Stephen King, Cujo, Simple Tale of One Boy and His Dog. A collection, or an anthology rather, Savage Heroes. So it has stories by Henry Kuttner, Clark Ashton Smith, Ramsey Campbell, Robert E. Howard, and Carl Edward Wagner. Edited by the suspiciously named Eric Pendragon, and illustrated by Jim Pitts, who also has signed this one. Iron Cage by Andre Norton. I've read a few Andre Norton. They are fun books. Not read this one yet, but yeah, I would like to get round to this. How Sleep the Brave, Guild Books. So this is a very thin book, but it's very thin for a reason. There was paper shortages. This is published during the Second World War. Guild Books was a number of book publishers who had got together to produce short, stirring, patriotic pieces. So this is by Flying Officer X, and there's going to be a selection of stories, presumably about the RAF. Flying Officer X was H.E. Bates. Ace Science Fiction Paperback Time, and The Cosmic Computer by H. Beam Piper. Now, I thought I'd dealt with my Aldous in last week's collection, but here's one that got slipped through the net, Billion Year Spree by Brian Aldiss, and this is his another history of science fiction. I think he did end up writing A Trillion Year Spree later on, but I'm just going to have to settle for the billion. I've heard good things about this book, and this is my original Ballantine paperback, and it says Thorns from Robert Silverberg. The Marquis of O and Other Stories. So early 19th century, late 18th century German stories. Books 3 and 4 in the Dumarest saga from E.C. Tubb. Now, in last week's I found book number 26, so I'm going about these all out of order. But this is Callan, which is the fourth one, and Toyman, which is the third. A Lancer paperback this time, and this is The Time Masters by Wilson Tucker. And from 1980, Omega by Stuart Farrar, End of the World chunker. And now some books which I am definitely going to read, hopefully fairly soon, because I am going to be looking at writing about underground societies, Hollow Earth, and lost lands. And these are my books that I've got so far in the Shaver Mystery Compendium. There are 8. I think there's planned to have 10 of them. I've only got 4 of them. I will need to get the other ones because I want to go into this one properly. But here we are with Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, Volume 8. Some non-fiction now, but still science fiction related. This is from Mike Ashley and Robert A.W. Lowndes, and this is the Gernsback years. So looking at Hugo Gernsback, he of Hugo's fame, and this is a study of the evolution of modern science fiction from 1911 to 1936. And finally, for this shelf, Ed Hulse, The Blood and Thunder Guide to Pulp Fiction, which I have read and is chock full of facts. It covers all types of pulp. So you have your science fiction, you have the fantasy, you have the horror, you have the detective fiction, sports, westerns, spicy, you name it, it's all in here. So I'm conflicted when I'm doing these. I am going through these shelves and I'm thinking, right, well, I'm obviously just not going to buy any more books until I've got some of these done. And I'm also thinking, if I'm going to read this one, I'm going to need the sequel or the prequel or the books that fill the gaps. Hopefully, I will try to find some kind of equilibrium. But until next week,